All right, tonight we're talking about the devil. Everyone say, ooh, the devil. Okay, so here's the thing. I know that when you hear about, for some of us, if we even talk about God or Jesus, it's like, really? Really? Come on. But the devil, like, for some of us, that just feels really far-fetched. For others of us, it's easier to believe that there's a devil. Like, look at the world, right? It's easier for us to believe that there's a devil than there is that there's a God, right? And so I know that this can land in a lot of different places. But here's what I want to do today. We're starting a series called The Devil's Game. And if you want to defeat your opponent, you got to know their tactics. You got to know what they're up to and how they mess with you, how they try to win, because if you know how they try to win, then you can win. And I want you, in the life that you live, to experience victory. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the devil's game. And tonight's title, I changed the title just earlier today. I changed the title. We're going to call this message, The Devil and the Dudes. Everyone say, The Devil and the Dudes. Okay, some of you are like, what is that about? We'll get there, So here's the thing with the devil. The devil has a goal, and this is, according to Jesus, this is what he says. He says that the devil's goal is to steal, to kill, and destroy what matters to God. And I want you to know that you matter to God. And if that sounds scary, like, oh no, there's this like creepy guy with horns and a pitchfork. By the way, none of that horns and pitchfork stuff is in the Bible. That's just like TV and whatever. But this scary guy is, after me or wants to attack me. As a follower of Jesus, you actually do not need to be concerned about that. Here's the thing, a lot of people are like, the devil and demons, oh, that's scary. Some of you've seen The Exorcist, that old movie, like where the head turns all the way around and projectile vomit. Has anyone seen it? Anyone seen that movie? Okay, yeah, some of you are like, I hope that's not real. That's not what we see in the Bible. That's not what we see at all. But we do see that there is an enemy of God, and you are made in the image of God. You matter to God. And so God's enemy does not like you and is not for you, and comes to steal and kill and destroy you and your life. And there's a way that the devil goes about accomplishing this goal, and my guess is that as we talk about this more, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, definitely experienced that before. And so there's three things. I want you to write them down. There's three things that the devil does. The first thing in the devil's game is the devil will lie to us. The devil will twist the truth, and as the devil twists the truth, he does so in hopes that we will now act on false information. So in the garden, God said, don't eat of that tree or you'll die. And so the devil comes along and is talking with Eve and says, did God really say that? You won't die. You'll just know everything God knows. And he lies. And we hear lies all the time. Sometimes it's in the form of these like thoughts that come into our head. Sometimes it's in the form of the things that our culture says to us. Sometimes it's in the form of things that our people in relationship to us say. There's all these lies that can come our way, and if we believe them, well, it can steal life from us. It can kill us. It can destroy who we're made to be. And so the devil, the first thing in his game is to lie. The second thing is to tempt us. Now here's what temptation is. You know what it is when it's like, I don't know, I was looking for like images to put up there. I'm like, that's just too corny. I just can't do it. Although I do love corny jokes and things like that. But like this was like someone looking at a piece of cake and they're like, like they were feeling temptation to eat the chocolate cake, okay? Now, some people, they have a really tough relationship with food. So I don't want to like discount that. But temptation, it's often even more subtle. See, what the devil does is the devil will take the things that are actually bad for us and he'll make them look like they're good for us. He'll make them accessible for us. In fact, he'll start to add extra lies in there that will help us to start to think things like, maybe this is actually a great idea. And so we're drawn in, and then what happens is we commit a sin. Something that separates us from God, separates us from other people, separates us from life. And you know what the devil's game is then? Is to accuse us. The devil will say, yeah, it's a great idea. Come on, come on. And then once you sin, he'll say, what's wrong with you? You're terrible. God will never love you. He lies, he tempts, he accuses. Did you know the word Satan isn't necessarily a name? It's like the ancient Hebrew word for the person who's the prosecutor in the trial. The person that's saying, you're guilty and here's why. And do you know what's really tough about this? The shame that the devil heaps on us, well, usually he doesn't have to make it up. Because there's lots of things that we're ashamed of in our life. There's lots of things that we'd rather not do. And so all he has to do is, first he says what's not true, and then he tempts us, and then he says what is true about what we've done. And he makes us think it's who we are. So this is the devil's game. Maybe you've experienced it. Maybe you've felt it. Maybe you've recognized as you look back, I've believed some lies, or I've given in to some temptation, or I've been carrying so much shame. It's like almost like these intrusive thoughts. This might be a little weird for some of you, but it's just something that should be said. Some of you, you've dabbled in some things that just really are not healthy for your spirit. Some of you, you wear those crystals. Some of you open doors, spiritual doors, that are not healthy, that are not helpful. And there's lies, temptation, and accusation. It's the devil's game. It's just a rock, yeah, until it means something, until you experience something, until you start believing something that's not true. And so here's what I want to do with the rest of our time, and this is why I'm calling this message, The Devil and the Dudes. I want to ask you a question. If you were the devil, I know, you're not, okay? You're beautiful, you're wonderful, okay? But if you were the devil and it was your job to steal and kill and destroy everything that matters to the heart of God, what would you do if you wanted to go after young men? If you were the devil and you wanted to destroy the lives and the lives of those around young men, what would you do? If I was the devil, this is a weird thought exercise. If I was the devil, I would tell him a lie first. That's the first thing in the devil's game. And I'd tell him this lie. I'd say, hey, a real man is stronger. A real man is. And of course, I'd make sure that they don't know what real means. They'd probably interpret it as something like, the kind of guy that other guys want to be, the kind of guy that girls throw themselves at. And I realize that this is cisgendered, but man, isn't it the cisgendered guys that struggle the most in our world right now? Not because their challenges are biggest. In fact, I would argue the girls have the biggest challenges. The girls just meet their challenges a little bit better than the guys overall. And usually it's the girls that pay the price, isn't it? But I could tell them if I was the devil, a real man, he's stronger. Have you noticed how a lot of us guys, and I'm including myself in this, when you're in a room and someone's funnier than you got to figure out how to be funnier than them. When someone's louder than you got to figure out how to be louder than them. When someone's cooler than you got to figure out how to be cooler than them. When someone's better at that sport, you got to figure out how to be better at that than them, because a real man is stronger. And there's nothing wrong with going to the gym or whatever, to make your body strong. There's nothing wrong with building your intelligence. There's nothing wrong with all the ways that we can be strong as people. But if I was the devil, I wouldn't encourage them to become strong as people. I'd encourage them to only compare themselves to the other guys around them. And measure themselves by the way that girls view them. Do you know any guys that buy a lie like that? I know a few. And I have in my past. See, this lie, and this is just one. Satan throws all kind of lies at us. But a real man is stronger, and so we try to become stronger. But the truth is that in a room, there can only be one person that's the strongest. One person that's the alpha. The rest of you are betas. And so you know what I would do if I was the devil? After I lied to them, I would tempt them. And I'd start to say, you know what? You've been working really hard. This is fine. It's okay to mess around like that. I mean, it's okay to joke like that. It's fine. There's more important things than going to church or your faith. It's fine. You're stressed. I mean, how else does anyone today deal with these things? You deserve it. And let me just be very honest. As a pastor, it's very sad how many girls come to me to tell me with tears in their eyes about how they were taken advantage of by someone who bought into this temptation. It happens a lot. The stats of how women are treated by men in our country are abysmal. And here's the thing about stats. They seem cold, they seem arbitrary, they seem like we can just put it over here, and I don't need to change anything about me. Oh yeah, but I'm going to try to just fit in and kind of like I want to still go along with everything that the crowd is doing. What makes you think that you won't be different? Oh, not me, not me. Well, how come these things keep happening? See, guys, it's not like it's because guys just suck. Guys don't suck. Satan does. And his lies do, and his temptations do. Who do you think is more addicted, guys or girls at your age? It's the guys. Who do you think views porn more frequently, guys or girls? Guys. Who do you think commits assault more frequently, guys or girls? Guys. Who do you think ends up living at home after high school more frequently, guys or girls? Who do you think excels in school more, guys or girls? Yeah, I said that backwards. Yeah, you're right, girls. But you caught it. Good job. Good job. You're listening. Good. See, guys, it's not because you just suck. But there's an enemy that's coming after you. And you need to know his game. And girls, listen to me. I know when you look around at all of the guys that you could date or even just be friends with, most of you have lowered your standards because you're worried. You're worried. I mean, he seems really high status. I'd like some status. I'm just here to tell you that relationship isn't going to work out. A trade of status is not going to go well for you. Some of you, you've lowered your standards, and it's acceptable the way that he's treated you, or you've treated him as though it is acceptable, when it's not. The way that he talks to you, the way that he pushes you. And I just want to remind you that you are so valuable. And there are good men. In fact, there's a lot of good men that are sitting around you right now, but they've just forgotten. But please understand this. Please. If you think it's your job to help him remember, you're going to be the one to get hurt. It's not your job to help him remember who he is. That's God's job. So ladies, I want to encourage you to raise your standards. Raise your standards of the men that you date. Raise your standards of the men that you're friends with. Raise your standards for what you allow for them to do around you. You use your voice because you're a powerful, strong woman of God. And you are a daughter of the King of the universe. You don't have to put up with that. You have a bright future ahead of you. You have connection and relationship and a family, and you have all that your heart longs for ahead of you. And fellas, if you leave here tonight and you think the message is girls good, guys bad, you missed it. It's girls good. Guys have been tempted by Satan himself so much over the course of time that guys have forgotten who they really are. So it's fine. You're stressed, you deserve it. And then, of course, we give in to sin. We all do. Me too. I'm not immune to this just because I'm a pastor. And then Satan accuses us. And I think the number one thing that guys hear is you're pathetic. You're not a real man. You're just like your father, Satan says. God will never accept someone like you, Satan says. If you're a young man in this room, I want you to stand to your feet. Every young man, stand to your feet right now. Every young man, I want you to stand to your feet. Fellas, hear me. Stay standing. You're not pathetic. The man that God made you to be is in you. And the Spirit of God is here for you. You don't have to write the same kind of story that everyone else has been writing. And you don't even have to sacrifice things that are that important, like the approval of people that don't actually like you. You're not pathetic. You've been trapped in the game. Do you know what you are? You are an extraordinary gentleman. How do you like that? Maybe you've forgotten it, but I want to just remind you, fellas, you're an extraordinary gentleman. In fact, I just want you to look at any guy standing around you, and I just want you to look him in the eyes. Ladies, you don't have to do this yet because they got to prove it to you over the course of time. But for the fellas, look at each other and remind each other who you really are. You're an extraordinary gentleman. Okay. Have a seat. Have a seat, guys. Okay, so if the devil was going to take out young men, and with taking out young men, hurt lots of women and their families, and fill them with so much anger and rage and shame that they lose themselves, they lose their faith, I think the devil would lie, and I think the devil would tempt you, and I think the devil would accuse you. But here's an even better question. What do you think Jesus would do if he was going to restore young men? You know what I think he would do? Instead of lying, I think that he would tell them the truth, even when it stings a little bit. And fellas, here's the truth. You can do a little better. You can. Because it's in you. It's who you are. You're an extraordinary gentleman. You're made in the image of God. So follow Jesus because he is the ultimate gentleman. Stop trying to be the alpha. Do you know Jesus says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. There is no one greater, but do you know that Jesus, he comes down and he washes the feet of his disciples? And he says, if you really want to be great, learn to serve. If you really want to be a real man, which basically means you're a male who's mature. Real man is just a social construct that's probably more harmful than helpful. But if you want to be a male who's mature, here's how you fight back against the devil's game. I want you to do this. I want you to fill your mind with God's truth. In other words, you got to get to church. You got to read this. You got to get worship music in your mind. Because let's just get honest, what you're scrolling on your phone late at night is not helping you to treat women well. Awkward, huh? But I'm going to tell you the truth because I love you. And this is hurting you and it's hurting others. You might just dive into your video games. Did you know that the average guy spends 10,000 hours on their video games by the time they're 21 years old? Ironically, the same amount of hours to become a virtuoso at any instrument. Think of the potential that's wasted. Oh, but I'm stressed. No, you're just not living. You've forgotten who you are. Fill your mind with God's truth. Jesus says, then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Here's the other thing you got to do. And by the way, this isn't just for the guys. Girls, you got to do this too. There's temptations that you just got to resist. Here's something I've noticed with high school students. It's not just the people in this room. It's just high school students, and honestly, it's adults too. Sometimes we think that we are what we feel. Or we are whatever thoughts come into our mind. And we have to obey whatever thoughts come into our mind. That's just not true. We need to resist that. Sometimes there's things that our minds or our bodies or our relationships around us that they want for us or from us. And they're just not what's good. Resist it, the Bible says. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to God. He'll draw near to you. And here's the last thing. Probably the most important thing, because every one of us is going to leave this room as a human being. And that means tomorrow, you're going to sin. You're going to be tempted. You're going to give in. You're going to act in a way that's less than who you really are. We all do that every day. So are you just going to let the devil just heap shame on you, call you pathetic? Or man of God, woman of God? Are you going to stand up and cling to the cross, cling to God's grace? Here's a key verse. I want you to, this is our Bible reading, I want you to write these words down in this verse here from 2 Corinthians. Paul, he's talking about all these people that are accusing him of not being good enough. Ever felt that way, fellas? And he was going through lots of hardship at the same time, and he prayed that God would take it away. And he says, God's answer was, my grace is all you need. You don't need to become the alpha. You don't need to become the best, because my power is better than theirs. And my power works best in weakness. Fellas, here's a word I want you to learn and practice better than anything else that you practice. From here, at least until you graduate. Vulnerability. Your ability to practice vulnerability will give you the ability to actually live the life you want in Christ. But if you're too busy being just hard, if you're too busy closing things down, too busy trying to power up, to dominate, to be the funny guy, you will miss it. You know what else makes me really sad about the way that the devil's messed with guys is it's not the girls don't hate themselves. It's just the guys kill themselves. It's not the girls have never killed themselves, but the guys do it way more. I don't deserve life. It's a lie. Maybe the world will be better off without me. Temptation. Why are you even here? Accusation. It's the devil's game. See, the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. And Jesus goes on in John 10:10, and he finishes that by saying, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I want you to follow that guy. That's what it means to be a real human. Follow that guy. Cling to him. He loves you. He's not going to heap shame on you. He forgives you. So stop playing the devil's game. Fight back. Because you're made in the image of God and you matter to God. You matter around here too. Next week, we're going to continue the devil's game. We're going to stop picking on the guys. We're not going to pick on the girls. They get picked on enough. But next week, you'll want to come back because we're going to talk about sex. God loves you. Have a great night.